The wedding feast was the most lavish the capital had seen in a generation. Tables groaned under the weight of boar, swan, lemon cakes, and Dornish wine. Lords and ladies from every corner of Westeros clapped as King Joffrey Baratheon cut his wedding pie with a Valyrian steel blade, grinning wildly as live doves flapped into the sky. "Your Grace, perhaps some wine?" Tyrion offered, hands trembling slightly as he passed the golden goblet. Joffrey took it with his usual sneer. "Pour it! Kneel while you do it!" The court laughed awkwardly. Cersei frowned. Margaery touched her new husband's arm in gentle protest, but he brushed her off. "The imp lives to serve," he said. Tyrion poured the wine, swallowing his pride with the taste of humiliation. The cup passed Joffrey's lips. The room tensed. Seconds passed, and nothing happened. The boy king didn't choke, didn't gasp. He raised the cup again, triumphant. He lived. Across the hall, Olenna Tyrell's smile faltered for just a breath. Her wrinkled fingers touched Sansa's necklace, where the poison had been hidden. Gone. Had it never reached the cup? Had someone interfered? Something was wrong. And the monster was still breathing. Margaery Tyrell had dreamt of being queen all her life. But this was a gilded nightmare. Joffrey was unkind behind closed doors. No, unkind was too gentle. He was cruel, cold, a boy raised with a lion's roar and a madman's heart. He didn't hit her, not yet. He didn't need to. He whispered horrors, ordered her to undress just to laugh at her, told her what would happen if she ever tried to leave. She slept in her royal chambers each night, wide awake, praying morning would come. Olenna noticed the bruises on her granddaughter's wrist. The light gone from her eyes, but she dared not try a second attempt. They'd missed their chance. Now the Tyrells had to play the long game. Margaery would survive, somehow, and perhaps, someday, rule alone. Without Joffrey's death, there was no trial, no murder accusation, no frantic escape with Varys, but there was no safety either. Joffrey made a sport of humiliating Tyrion at court, ordering him to clean spilled wine, to bow before lesser lords, to kneel before the Iron Throne and bark like a dog for his king's amusement. Cersei encouraged it, eyes alight with sadistic glee. Only Tywin held any restraint over the boy. But even Tywin could feel it slipping. One night Tywin summoned his youngest son. "You cannot remain here," he said. "He will kill you eventually. It's only a matter of time." "And you care?" Tyrion asked, raising an eyebrow. Tywin stared, cold. "No, but your death would be inconvenient. We must present a united front to the realm." "You want to send me away then? Where? Casterly Rock?" "No," Tywin said. "To Essos." "You'll take a ship at night." Quietly, Tyrion left the room with fire in his veins. He wouldn't be exiled like a criminal. He would disappear by choice. And if he ever returned, it would be with a sword in his hand. Sansa Stark remained a prisoner in silk. With Joffrey alive, her torment continued. He no longer beat her, but his new sport was cruelty of the mind. He would call her out during feasts. "Tell us again how your father screamed," he'd say, "or shall we hear your lovely singing voice, little bird?" Margaery, trapped as well, could offer only gentle glances. One night, Dontos Hollard tried to approach her in the Godswood. "The plan failed," he whispered. "Littlefinger's gone. The boat is gone. I'm sorry." Sansa clenched her fists until her nails drew blood. She was alone, but in the shadows, Varys watched. He saw what Joffrey had become. He knew the danger of a mad king with unchecked power, and he began to plan anew. Jaime Lannister had returned to King's Landing just before the wedding. He'd hoped to rebuild his life, to find Cersei, to keep his oaths. Instead, he found a son he could never claim, and a king he no longer recognized. Joffrey was vicious to everyone. He mocked his uncle's missing hand. A lion without claws, he called him. A knight for the crutches. But worse, he turned on Cersei. Joffrey began to ignore her in council. He barked orders at Tywin. He ordered the small council to build a fleet for war without approval. "I am the king," he'd say, "and I do not need permission." Tywin tried to rein him in, but Joffrey had tasted absolute power. He would not give it up. Jaime watched all this, torn between loyalty and dread. "I should have let him drown as a babe," he muttered one night to Brienne, in a moment of rare honesty. The king had become a threat to the kingdom, and kings like that didn't last forever. Joffrey sat the Iron Throne like a wolf in a hen house. With Tywin still acting as hand, the kingdom maintained a thin veil of order. But Joffrey's defiance grew daily. He issued royal decrees without council approval. He doubled the city's taxes, seized land from minor lords, and authorized public floggings for insults to the crown. Small folk were terrified. Nobles were furious. "Your Grace, perhaps we should review these decisions before enacting them," Tywin urged. Joffrey laughed in his face. "You forget, grandfather, I am king." "You are a boy with a crown," Tywin replied coldly. "That does not make you wise." That night, Joffrey ordered a statue of himself built twice the height of the Mad King's. He told the sculptor to make the face sneering, like I just cut off a traitor's head. Even Cersei couldn't control him anymore. He humiliated her in public, laughed at her behind her back. In private, he warned her, "Speak to me like that again, and I'll name you Dowager Queen and send you to Casterly Rock in chains." Cersei stood in stunned silence. Her little lion had become something else. Something far worse. Far across the narrow sea, Daenerys Targaryen ruled Meereen. But without Tyrion Lannister at her side, her path to Westeros grew thornier. She struggled with the ruling council, with rebellious cities, with the restless people. Her dragons grew wilder, especially Drogon. There was no witty dwarf to help her balance mercy and ruthlessness. No voice of Westerosi politics, and she had no idea that across the sea, Joffrey Baratheon had become everything her father was accused of being, and more. But one night, as she walked through her chambers, a raven came. No sender, just one sentence. "Lives the boy king, he rules, and the fire is spreading." She didn't know who sent it. But she read it a dozen times. The Iron Throne was still occupied by a mad child. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to take it. Varys knew how to survive. He also knew when a ruler had become a danger to the realm, and Joffrey Baratheon was more than a danger. He was a wildfire keg with a lit fuse. The spider moved in shadows. He reached out to the remnants of allies, Illyrio Mopatis in Pentos, spies in Dawn, whispers from Braavos. He offered gold, secrets, promises of a better king. He even began spreading a rumor slowly and carefully. Tommen Baratheon is the true king. Joffrey is unfit, mad, dangerous, a soft rebellion, just words. But in King's Landing, words were weapons. He watched the court closely. Tywin was losing control. Jaime had withdrawn. Cersei was drinking more, and Sansa Stark, still trapped, was being watched closely. Too closely. Something had to be done. The realm could not endure this king much longer, but Varys knew better than anyone replacing a king was never simple. It required sacrifice. At Highgarden, Olenna Tyrell was furious. The plan had failed. The poison never reached Joffrey. Someone had interfered. She suspected Littlefinger, but there was no proof. Still, her granddaughter was suffering. Her house was tied to a madman, and if they remained passive, they'd burn with the rest of the realm. So Olenna began to write letters, one to Dawn, one to Old Town, one to a forgotten bannerman in the Stormlands. She didn't name Joffrey as a target. Not yet. But she sowed doubts. She hinted at instability, at weakness, at the possibility of better options for the throne, options the Tyrells might support. Her message was clear. The king is young, his grip is fragile, and Highgarden watches carefully. Joffrey loved theatrics, so he announced a masquerade ball for the small folk in the capital. A gift to the people, he called it. They may see their king in glory. What followed was a terrifying night of mockery and menace. The guards wore masks of wolves and boars and dragons. Some beat the poor. Others drank in the street. Joffrey appeared in a crown of fire and bones, laughing atop a golden carriage. Sansa watched from a tower window, heart thudding. "He's not a king," she whispered to herself. "He's a curse." And in the crowd, below, cloaked in shadows, a messenger whispered to Varys, "The ships are ready. When the time comes, we'll have them waiting." The game had changed. The boy king still lived, but death wore many faces. The small council was a battlefield now. Tywin sat like a boulder amid the storm, stoic and unmoved, but Joffrey rarely listened. Grand Maester Pycelle murmured fearful advice, while Qyburn, promoted by Joffrey himself, suggested darker measures, executions, torture, and public demonstrations of loyalty. Even Cersei began to falter. She tried to reason with her son one evening behind closed doors. "You are king, yes," she whispered, "but a king must be wise, respected." Joffrey laughed in her face. "You sound like grandfather." "I am your mother." "You are nothing but the vessel that bore me, a lioness whose claws have dulled." He turned and left her in silence, and Cersei, for the first time, understood what she had unleashed. This boy wasn't a lion. He was a rabid. Dog in a crown, and rabid dogs didn't grow old. Jaime Lannister tried to stay out of court matters, but silence became unbearable. He watched Joffrey's cruelty, watched Cersei's helplessness, watched Tywin grow increasingly bitter. One evening, in the Red Keep's practice yard, Jaime found Brienne waiting. "I heard he flogged a baker's daughter for dropping bread," she said. "He did," Jaime replied, sheathing his sword, and laughed as she bled. Brienne frowned. "You're the Lord Commander of the King's Guard. Your oath is to protect the king." "My oath is to protect the realm from him, if it comes to that," Jaime said flatly. He had broken kings before. What was one more? Tyrion never made it to Essos. He slipped away in the night with a single guard, Podrick Payne, and vanished across the Stormlands, hiding in cloaks and taverns, travelling under a false name. He had a plan. Not revenge, not yet. He would go to River Run, or maybe even Dawn. Somewhere the Lannisters held no sway. There he would gather influence, knowledge. And when the time was right, he would return, not as the imp, but as something more dangerous. A man who knew the game. A man with nothing to lose. A man ready to help burn the house that had tried to bury him. In the Red Keep, Sansa Stark reached her breaking point. The court had stopped pretending. Joffrey barely acknowledged her as anything but a hostage. Cersei ignored her. Margaery wept in silence. Sansa was alone, but then a message came, slipped beneath her door. When the bells toll thrice, follow the maid with the silver comb. Do not hesitate. The next morning, Sansa watched the sun rise over the city. Something in her heart stirred. Fear, hope, something fragile. When the bells tolled 3 times at dusk, she followed the instructions. In the alley near the kitchens, the maid waited, no words, only a nod. A path opened, a door led to tunnels. The city passed above them, and Sansa disappeared into the night. By morning, the lion's den was 1 prisoner lighter. Joffrey raged when he discovered Sansa was gone. He blamed the Tyrells, threatened Margaery with exile, ordered the city watch to round up anyone connected to the Stark girl. He had 3 bakers hung by sundown, a washerwoman tortured for names. Half the castle trembled. Tywin stood silent. "I want her found," Joffrey screamed. "She's gone," Tywin said coldly. "And your rage does nothing but make you look weak." Joffrey's face twisted. "I should have your head for that." Tywin took a step forward, eyes burning. "Do it then. Prove to the realm you're madder than the king before you." For 1 heartbeat, the court stopped breathing. But Joffrey said nothing. He turned and stormed away, red-faced and shaking. Tywin watched him go. The boy was slipping, and the realm was watching. Daenerys Targaryen marched toward Yunkai, her army swelling. The unsullied, second sons, freedmen, they all followed her. But the letter she received haunted her. The king in Westeros grows crueler by the day. He burns the poor, he spits on the gods, he rules as fire made flesh. The people suffer, they await their queen. She folded the letter and fed it to the flames, but her mind was made up. She would take Westeros not only as her birthright, but as a mercy. A mad boy sat the Iron Throne. A dragon must come to claim it, the Reach, Dawn, the Riverlands. Messages moved like whispers in the wind. Lords spoke in coded phrases. The word king began to carry new weight, but not the same meaning. No one dared move openly, yet, but the Tyrells no longer trusted their alliance with the crown. The Martells sent no further emissaries to King's Landing. Even the Tullys, long broken, stirred beneath the surface. Olenna Tyrell penned a single, damning sentence in a letter to Doran Martell. "The boy is mad, and he must be undone. If we move together, no lion can stop us. No signature, no seal. But the message was clear. Tywin Lannister never slept well. Not anymore. He saw it all unraveling. His legacy, the family name, the kingdom he'd tried to keep balanced on a knife's edge. All torn apart by a boy who called himself king. He summoned Jaime one last time. "I built this house. Tywin said, voice low. Stone by stone. Sacrifice by sacrifice, and it will fall because I allowed sentiment to blind me. You mean Joffrey? Jaime replied. I mean you.
I should have drowned him as a babe and sent you to the wall after your disgrace. There was no love between them now, only history, blood and bitterness. That night, Tywin Lannister died in his bed. Not at the hands of Tyrion, but quietly in
his sleep, his heart finally giving out after years of war, pride, and burden. In the morning, the Red Keep rang with bells. But no one truly mourned. Joffrey stood above the pyre of his grandfather, his expression unreadable. His speech was short, cruel, dismissive. He ruled with strength, but strength without will means nothing. I will show Westeros true power. His eyes scanned the crowd.
Lannisters, Tyrells, Martells, faithful lords, nervous eyes, trembling lips. Everyone knew now Tywin was the last leash, and he was gone. The beast was free. Jon Snow stood atop the wall, the wind in his hair, ghost at his side. He had not seen
Sansa in years, then a raven came. Sansa lives, she's safe. Joffrey rules, tyranny grows, the south weakens, the time is coming, no name, no sigil, but it rang with truth. Jon looked across the ice and snow to the vast unknown, and somewhere deep inside the north stirred. If Sansa lived, then House Stark lived, and perhaps the time had come for wolves to howl once more. In Meereen, Daenerys watched as her ships filled the bay. Thousands marched beneath her banner, slaves freed, armies built, dragons fed and ready. She had waited long enough, but this would not be a gentle landing. She'd heard the stories of the boy king's rule, his cruelty, his madness, his pride. I will not let another mad tyrant rule my home, she whispered. Sir Barristan bowed beside her. Then we sail at dawn, your grace. She mounted Drogon. Black wings unfurled. The storm was coming for Westeros, and this time the fire was not in the king's hands, it was in hers. Margaery moved carefully in the Red Keep now. She still played the dutiful wife, still smiled when Joffrey paraded his
arrogance, but she was different now, sharper, colder. Olenna had taught her to survive.
And she was surviving. One day at court, she watched Joffrey slap a young lord across the face for speaking too slowly. He turned to her, grinning. I like it when they squirm, don't you? Margaery smiled, but her hand was already writing another letter in her mind. To Dawn, to Riverrun, to whoever still dared. Joffrey thought himself untouchable, but even lions bled when cut deep enough. Varys stood at the top of the black cells, listening to the silence beneath him. Every piece was in motion. Tyrion had vanished into the Riverlands, possibly aligning with rebellious houses. Daenerys was sailing, the Reach was turning, the North was stirring, and Joffrey ruled in fire and arrogance, unaware of the noose tightening around his golden crown. Varys turned to his companion in the shadows, a faceless man from Braavos. When the time comes, Varys whispered. Make it quick, the man said.
Nothing, just nodded once. The game had shifted. It was no longer about who ruled, it was about who survived. It began with a feast. Joffrey, always obsessed with spectacle, declared a grand celebration in the Red Keep to mark his 3rd year as king. I've
Given this realm law, order, and blood, he declared before the gathered lords, let them praise me, or let them burn. The wine flowed, dancers twirled. Margaery stood beside him, smiling like a porcelain doll. But something had changed. The small council chamber stood nearly empty now. The lords who remained were cautious, nervous,
even. Lady Olenna had returned to Highgarden. Dawn had declined the invitation entirely. Cersei watched her son with glassy, distant eyes.
Jaime was absent. Whispers moved faster than the music, and Varys was gone. In the gardens behind the Red Keep, Margaery met secretly with Lord Garland Tyrell. He grows bolder, she said quietly, eyes darting to the shadows. He killed a page boy last week because he dropped his cape. We have allies, Garland replied. The Martells are ready. The North prepares. Dawn is sharpening its knives.
And Daenerys? Margaery asked. She sails with dragons. Margaery exhaled. Then we must survive, just a little longer. She touched her stomach gently. False hope planted by rumour. If Joffrey believed she carried his heir, he would keep her alive, long enough to see him fall.
A raven arrived at Dragonstone. Daenerys read it under the firelight. Its words were simple. The mad boy still sits the throne. But the people do not cheer. They only watch. And wait. She mounted Drogon before dawn. Her fleet moved like a storm across the narrow sea. Jon Snow marched from the north with wildlings and Sansa by his side. The Lords of the Vale had joined them. From the west, Tyrion returned, older, wiser, his face shadowed by scars both seen and unseen. He brought with
him names, secrets, support. And across the kingdom the people whispered, the Queen is coming.
The first sword drawn against Joffrey was not from a foreign army. It was from the King's Guard. Sir Balon Swan struck first, his blade slicing through a corrupt gold cloak in the throne room. Then Sir Meryn Trant fell, stabbed through the back, by a faceless assassin in the halls. By the time Joffrey realized what was happening, the Red Keep was already ablaze with rebellion. Servants fled. Lords vanished. The castle trembled, and Margaery was gone. He screamed for Cersei, but she was nowhere to be found. In the chaos, he ran to the throne room. There, atop the Iron Throne, stood Jaime. I should have killed you, Joffrey hissed, eyes wild, sword drawn. I know, Jaime said. You betrayed me. You let them in. No, Jaime said softly. You let yourself fall? Joffrey charged. Jaime parried. His left hand was gone, but his right still knew war. The boy king was strong but wild. His strikes were rage, not skill. Jaime sidestepped. The golden sword Joffrey wielded clanged against the throne, and then Jaime struck. One clean thrust through the stomach. Joffrey gasped, dropped his sword, clutched at his bloodied chest. He collapsed at the base of the throne he'd never deserved, and died with a snarl on his lips. The gates of King's Landing opened with little resistance. Drogon flew overhead, roaring as the people bowed. Daenerys walked through the streets, not with fire, but with silence. She passed the dead, the wounded, the broken, and she saw them. She saw what Joffrey had done. At the Great Sept, she met Jon Snow. The North had come, unbent and unbroken. Sansa stood beside him. Beside her, Tyrion, and at the throne room doors, Jaime waited. "We held it," he said. "For her." Daenerys stepped inside, past the burned banners and shattered glass, and looked upon the iron throne. She did not sit. Not yet. Joffrey Baratheon was buried in the crypts of the Sept, beside his brother Tommen and sister Myrcella. His tomb was small, plain. No songs were sung. The realm entered a new age, not of peace, not yet, but of possibility. Daenerys and Jon ruled together, fire and ice, balance and power. Sansa returned to Winterfell, crowned queen in the north. Tyrion became hand once more, guiding with patience learned through pain. Margaery Tyrell retired to Highgarden, never speaking of the boy king again. And Jaime? He vanished from court, his debts to the realm paid in blood. The mad boy king had fallen, and the realm, scarred but breathing, began to heal.